we're very excited to welcome Punycodes and Chain Left to speak with us today. This is our first series at the HNFT Museum, and where we're collaborating with over 20 different historical NFT projects, and really to create a movement to highlight historical NFTs, to really showcase and celebrate historical art assets held within our community, and really to educate and help onboard new people to the HNFT space. Yeah, this is an inclusive space for all, and we're really excited to welcome Chain Left
Hey,
and
hi
to hear
everyone.
more about the
And
story
thanks a lot
of
for inviting
historical
me here.
NFTs
This is actually really cool.
all the
I'm
way
just in
back to 2011.
this
So
metaverse space
welcome
that you
Chain
guys have
Left,
built
and we're
as well.
excited to have you
It looks really cool. I'm
tell us more
comparing
about
it
Punycodes.
obviously with On Cyber immediately. I like that you have this
Hey, hi everyone,
presentation
and thanks a
feature
lot for
here.
inviting me here. This is actually
It's really
really
cool
cool.
that it's a good place
I'm
to
just in
actually have these sorts of.
this metaverse space that you guys have built as well. It looks really cool. I'm comparing it with obviously with On Cyber immediately. I like that you have this presentation like feature here. So it looks pretty cool. Like it's a good place to I think have these sorts of meetings as well. So hopefully you'll carry more people from Twitter to this space over time. Yeah. I'm also very impressed with what you guys have built in Skalsdao. I mean, we've collaborated before with you guys in Punycodes, so I already know most of you, and I'm very happy to get to know you as well. And yeah, this is a really good progress. That's what you've built here. Like we're also kind of trying to continue to build things with Punycodes. Of course, we're a little more, I would say, like hands off, like a bit more. It's just basically people are doing stuff on their free time. Other than that, like we're not, like full on working on it. But I'm glad, like, that you guys have been building like very actively and contributing to the space, not just sitting and waiting for things to accrue value, which will happen for historical NFTs. But it's also good to see it like reflected in the more modern or more contemporary NFT space as well. So yeah, thank you for that. So where should I start? Like, should I just start talking about how the rediscovery happened and stuff like that?
Yeah, please do. Yeah, so tell us more about like the origins of Punycodes and how it was rediscovered.
Yeah, sure. So in this slide, I see that like someone put. So I haven't prepared this presentation, but it looks like 2011, 2015 it's said, but it's 2011 to 2017. So just like a small correction there. But other than that, like like Punycodes originally was not a collection. So let's be clear about that. Like Punycodes have been like individually or independently created assets on Namecoin blockchain. And it started in 2011. I believe it was May 10th, if I remember correctly. The first Punycode was created. So one thing you should know about Namecoin is that, a few things you should really know about Namecoin. It's the first decentralized, it's actually the first altcoin, really. Like just after Bitcoin, like the next blockchain is Namecoin. And they started in 2011, and the vision was to build a decentralized permissionless DNS protocol. That's the main concept behind Namecoin. But over time, of course, people started experimenting with with this new capability, because this was the first time that people were able to actually create ownership records that can be owned with a custom data. So when I say custom data, I'm referring to things like like any text, right, or any link or any encoded information. That's actually a pretty big deal when you think about it. Like this is what NFTs are today, right? Like the ownable, transferable data, essentially. Like now we have like we have videos and all these like on-chain art, gen art, and so on. Like everything improved like monumentally since then. But it started with this simple text ability to create simple text records on the chain. And because even though it was designed as a DNS, because people had this chance to do creative things, they did so immediately after, like just a few days after the Namecoin blockchain was formed. People started experimenting with things. One of the first things they experimented was still within the realm of domains. They tried to register like a Bitcoin symbol. At the time, the Bitcoin didn't really have a symbol, but they used the Thai baht symbol. And, it didn't work because DNS wouldn't accept that. It still got recorded on the chain, actually, like as a Unicode, but it didn't create a functional domain name. And then a guy called Carl at the time, like some Namecoin developer of the time, he said like, hey, why don't we use this Punycode encoding language? That's like this standard for internationalized domain names anyway, and let's use that to create those symbols. So he first created this E with a hat, that's a letter that exists in French. Normally, that's not part of the DNS. Like you can't add this, like you can't have actually a domain with that letter. But he did so using the Punycode encoding language. And then he started doing other stuff, like he created this, now many of us probably consider it to be the I guess, women breasts ASCII art. That's what was created, like again, in using Punycode encoding language. They created some symbols, like Bitcoin symbol or a few other some more stuff in that first day already. So Carl already created some of the first those ASCII art or symbols or non-Latin characters on the chain using this encoding language. So that was like probably the first record of a technical creativity on blockchain. Sorry, I shouldn't say that because obviously Bitcoin itself is a technical creative, but like with the on top of the protocol, let's say the first custom data that was created using technical creativity, and then of course that expanded further, right? Like then people started creating more ASCII art. They started creating emojis, more visual stuff, emoji stories, and then throughout the entire what we consider to be the Punycodes collection today, between 2011 to 2017, more than 3,000 Punycoded domains were created. And some of those are very artistic, like they're really cool stuff, like some of those ASCII art, table flip, I think some of you already know, but like they're really cool stuff there. There are emoji stories, like there is a Punycode that consists of I think like 8 emojis or 9 emojis. There are some mixed category ones, like symbols and emojis together. There are some I guess you could call it like almost calligraphy style, like a weird way that like things that are written in a weird way, like with different letters. For example, they wrote ether, but E being some like Latin, like Greek epsilon, and I don't know, H being something else. So they did like this creative stuff essentially using that encoding language throughout this 7-year period. And in beginning of 2022, early last year, basically, actually around these times, we celebrated our anniversary just last week, the rediscovery anniversary, I should say. Devoted, who's an NFT, I guess you can consider NFT historian or NFT archaeologist. He and another one called Poodle, they discovered this on Namecoin blockchain, and they realized like there are those weird xn -- what is that? And they researched it and they found out it's like an encoding language, and then they decoded them back and they realized there are like these really cool, interesting images there. So then that's definitely an interesting discovery. So they started to share this with the world. They only grabbed like I think less than 3% of the supply, I think, like maybe even 2. I'm not even sure how much they got, but they shared it basically with everyone. And in this time, I was actually online, and I reached out to Devoted as well, because we've been talking about some other work we were doing together. And I was like, "What is this? Like, what did you do?" Like, yeah, like this is really interesting. And I had no even idea about how to set up a Namecoin wallet. He not only walked me through how to actually set up your Namecoin Electrum wallets, he even literally sends me like a NMC, like the Namecoin token, so that I can re-register some of those new assets. It was super like generous of him, of course, and he did the same for I think dozens of people from what I know. And lots of people actually registered a lot, and in that spirit, like of sharing and kind of fair distribution and so on, I think reflected on a lot of people. Like for example, myself, I registered about 9, I think, at the time. Actually, no, 10. I registered 10 at the time. And I decided not to do anymore. Like, even though I was seeing them on the chain directly, I was like, okay, no, I'm not going to do it anymore because it's like too much already. And I was shared this NMC for free by someone. Like, I didn't discover this, right? I mean, so I should not grab that much. So that's what I did. And I think a lot of people did similar, I think. And so that's why I think like we have pretty good distribution of Punycodes in general, I think. And I think that spirit kind of stayed quite long as well. Like it's still today, I think we have that sort of spirit in the community. I think it's a bit more, I would say, a bit less shillfest, maybe, let's call it. Like, we don't like shilling that much. We really try to like we have an art channel. Like we just share art there. We, like we built like the things that we're building throughout this year, like the Pune Factory and so on, which we'll talk about soon probably. These are all kind of part of the same story, I would say. Like we're kind of doing it in that spirit of a little bit of bringing value at the larger community, I think. So that's how the rediscovery happens, really. Any questions on until now?
No, it's great. Keep it going. We'll do Q&A at the end.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Sure. So yeah, I mean, we throughout the year, like we did a lot, like to get together with Devoted and the rest of the community members. There was an emblem vault image generator that we did, and we like some of the programmers in the community also helped us out. Like they developed a front end to be able to create a standardized version of the Punycodes assets when we carry them over to Emblem Vault. As you know, Emblem Vault, I mean, just for those who don't know about it, I'm sure most of you do, but Emblem Vault is this kind of a protocol, I guess, or a smart contract where you can actually bring your assets from other chains to Ethereum using a vaulting technique. Basically, your private keys are stored, like distributed and stored on Torus. So yeah, we wanted to keep this standard because there were a few scams happening in the early days. Because became very popular very quickly in the first few days, and a few scammers tried to kind of, I guess, trick others to sell non-Punycode assets as Punycodes. And for that reason, we tried to create a standardized version of the description and the naming and the image and so on. And that's what got created, basically. And a lot more, of course, was done. Like Devoted created this really beautiful website, punycodes.xyz. He also created our own cyber gallery, which you can go and view. It's like there is I think in one of the slides in the HNFT Museum, you will be able to see it. I think the screenshot. So yeah, there is a lot that happened in this 1 year. We've done a lot of collaborations. We've done collaborations with Mooncats, Panda Earth, other historical NFT questions, and then finally we actually launched a new ERC 1155 collection called the Puny Factory. Yeah, if you're in the HNFT Museum, you'll be able to see the screenshot of the Punycodes gallery. It's pretty cool, actually. I recommend you to go there because you not only will see the Punycodes there, but also you'll be able to see the separate room for the Puny Factory, which I'm going to explain in a second, and also a few portals to other historical NFT collections galleries as well. Yeah, so we launched in the summer in the ERC 1155 contract called the Puny Factory, and there were a couple of goals with this collection, basically. Obviously, the one of the goals is to actually use the Puny Factory to collaborate with other historical NFT collections and spread the word about both historical NFTs, but also about Punycodes and also the partnering, collaborating partner as well. But also, we wanted to highlight specifically the artists from the historical NFT communities as well. All the NFTs launched within the Puny Factory were the artwork has been only done by the members of the historical NFT community. So the first one we launched, I think you will see probably in the slides as well. So whoever is managing the slides in the museum, please continue. The first one was with Curio Cards DAO, and basically with the permission, of course, of the original artist as well. We've done the. This is we'll talk about this later. Go next, please, Brian. Yeah, sorry. So we'll we did the collaboration with Curio Cards DAO, and it was like this iconic apple from the first Curio card apple that was infused with the illustrations of Punycodes within. The second collaboration was with the Doge Party, where we did a art contest, and the winner, one of the winners at least, like got their piece minted in the Pune factory. The other piece got minted in the Doge Party itself. Then we did collaboration with V1 Punks, where an artist from that community actually, Frank, created a beautiful pixel art actually called Underworld, which was also like really I think nice. And then fourth finally was actually with Skulls DAO. Our collaboration, the last collaboration was with Skulls DAO, and the artist for that collection was the OG Hallucifile. Hallucifile is currently the only, I think, as far as I know, doxed artist behind Punycodes. He's done about more than 900. Yeah, you're seeing in the HNFT Museum right now. He's done about more than 900, I think 966 actually, Punycodes. He's minted them, and he agreed to do a piece for this, for this collaboration with Skulls DAO. It's like it sold out immediately, of course. Like it was really iconic piece as well itself. To a background on Hallucifile, he's actually a rare Pepe artist, as well as some other historical NFT collections like. Sorry, let's try to remember. Kaleidoscope, Mafia Wars, Bitcoin. So several XCP collections. He had actually works in those collections. So he's a very, I guess he's prolific artist. Let's say like he's part of both. He's both a Punycodes artist, an active Punycodes DAO member, and the fourth, the maker of the fourth piece in the Pune factory. So yeah, the Pune Factory I think was a really good success, and we're continuing to do more pieces in the Pune Factory. We're collaborating with more historical NFT collections just to kind of really like build this collection for the long term, both to highlight the artists, both to spread the word about the historical NFTs, but even like we're considering even onboarding other artists, like artists that currently aren't into historical NFTs, to the historical NFT communities as well by using this Pune Factory, because Punycodes has been always about art and history, right? We always like this slogan, like art, handshake, history. So we want to essentially bridge this art NFT communities and historical NFT communities, because we think that like art is one of the most, I guess, successful use cases of NFTs, and historical NFTs is probably one of the most, I guess, like no-brainer, right? Like historical NFT is probably like the most reasonable or less, one of those less shield-fast, less speculative part of NFTs. And that's why I think like there is this good synergy. There is a good synergy between these two communities. That's what we're trying to do essentially. One of the big events that happened this last year was actually, because Punycodes made a lot of noise, we actually got contacted by a curator who's actually done previously the creation of CryptoPunks. And he now works for Elementum Art Gallery. And it's called George Buck, by the way. And he basically decided to buy a few Punycodes himself, and he wanted to also display Punycodes in real life galleries. So that's what happened. If I remember, I think it was in the summer again. You can see the picture in the HNFT Museum if you're there. There was a commemorative NFT that was minted for that purpose as well, like almost like a POAP, I guess. So they, there was in Zurich, there was an in real life gallery of NFTs in general, and there was like a few screens dedicated to Punycodes where there was displayed some of the most historical, let's say, or most iconic Punycodes, some of which are the table flips, some more ASCII art, some multi-emoji stories, and some, and one of the earliest I think a few 2011 Punycodes were also displayed in that in real life gallery in the summer. So there are really cool photos and videos from that exhibition. Actually, we have in our Punycodes Discord. So if you're into it, you're welcome to join and check it out. I guess Punycodes. This is Punycodes. I mean, we are all about continuing to maintain the community of historical NFTs and making sure that we not only highlight this historical side of Punycodes, but also pave the way for new creations and pushing the boundaries of the NFT space forward, even in the contemporary space. So we want to continue supporting artists and making sure that we can spread the awareness about Punycodes overall. Is that a good summary?
Yeah, thanks so much, HNFT. Appreciate it. And it's fascinating to hear the story of Punycodes, and really nice to hear your story. What is your sort of inspiration behind Punycodes, and why do you love the project so much, and what are you looking forward the most to in the future for Punycodes?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess for me the reason I love is that I'm it's personal. Not everyone has to like everything, I think. For example, I'm someone who I think I haven't minted a PFP for maybe more than 1 year, 1.5 years. I think I don't, for example, I don't deal with PFPs much. I like art much more, like as an NFT, and I in the NFT space, I mean, and when you're into art NFTs and when you're into historical NFTs, it's kind of you can't escape. I think all the start NFTs. I guess like Punycodes probably is. We're not, of course, like there's always like new discoveries coming and stuff, but I think Punycodes might include probably the first art NFTs, and then for that reason, I think is why I'm fascinated by it. And I'm not, obviously, like the in the art context, these are very, like, let's be clear, these are very primitive or simple artworks. Like the medium was very, very immature at the time when Namecoin was founded. So, I'm not, dismissing that. Of course, like these artworks are quite simplistic, but at the same time, technology and art itself as well, they move progressively, right? Like you build on top of others' works, and it gets more complex and sophisticated over time. We only have Fidenza today because there was squiggles before that, and we only had squiggles because we had autoglyphs, which was relatively simpler than squiggles if you think about it. And then we only had autoglyphs because we had Dada and Cribs, and we had Curio cards, and then I'm not saying they are simple; these are amazing works, but autoglyphs were on chain, and then we had. And before that, we had CryptoPunks, and we had, when you go more backwards, I guess, like it will start to get a little simpler. I think that's inevitable. And when you go forward, you will have more sophisticated artworks. Like now in 2023, now you have like really like amazing collections that I can talk hours about, but it's not the topic here, obviously. I'm just saying that, things improve over time, and there are more simplistic words involved in the earlier timeframes, and that's why I like Punycodes. They're really, really old. That's probably the main reason. What I look forward to is probably more. I guess what I would look forward to is continuing to build the Punya Factory, like with more more contemporary artists, to make it more almost like a build the creation panel, I guess, of Punycodes DAO a bit as well, because we have now a DAO consisting of 32 members. And we brought back a lot of value, by the way, to these members so far. Like they've got a lot of the artworks, and they even got some like historical rediscoveries, like some pieces from historical new discoveries as well. And hopefully to build more like a creation panel there maybe, and then to build Punycodes to become continue to bridge really to the communities within arts NFT world and historical NFT world. That's probably what I'm looking for the most. There is a question in the HNFT Museum, so I'm just going to answer that one. Is it true that Satoshi Nakamoto had a hand in collaborating on Namecoin? Do we know if he had any input on the first NFTs? So Satoshi Nakamoto, I think, Brian, can you, in the HNFT Museum, can you open the slide with the one pager? So Satoshi Nakamoto, he was around when before Namecoin was created. They were talking about the centralized DNS ideas. Along with the first developers of Namecoin. So he had contributions in terms of ideas to the Namecoin. But Satoshi Nakamoto himself, as far as I know, he actually disappeared before the actual launch, official launch. So when people were working on Namecoin, he was contributing in terms of ideas to Namecoin. But I just don't want to mislead anyone. It's probably the only chain he had a contribution on a blockchain other than Bitcoin. That's probably but again, that contribution is more on an idea level. We don't know if he actually contributed to the code or if he actually, he himself registered anything on Namecoin. We don't know that information. It's, he's in the end anonymous. And if he had some alt account, maybe he did, but we don't know that really. So yeah, that's what we do know is that Namecoin is the only chain that he had some level of contribution at least, other than Bitcoin, obviously. There are a few interesting facts in this one pager that we have. For example, Namecoin is actually mentioned even in Ethereum white paper. Vitalik takes inspiration actually from Namecoin. He says this these non-fungible assets there on Namecoin is pretty interesting. So we can do this and more if we build this smart contract platform. So it's one of the ideas that he has in the Ethereum's creation. And also there are some interesting stuff in the asset supply as well. For example, there are some connected, I guess, stories you could say within the Punycodes. You have this a table flip, and then a few days later or 2 weeks later, you have a table being put back on its place, unflipped essentially. So it's really interesting stuff happening within the entire collection itself. Another thing we should mention, because these are encoded stuff, it's completely on chain. So the Namecoin assets, there is no links to external servers or anything like that. The assets themselves, the images that you will see, the ASCII art or the emoji or the symbol, everything is 100% on chain. So there's no risk of, I guess, servers shutting down or anything like that. So yeah, I think these are the fun facts that I wanted to probably touch base on. We can come back to the conversation about Namecoin itself. I think so. Epic, was it you who asked this question about how does it work with on a technical level Namecoin's provenance? I think that's one of the most probably debated topics about Namecoin, by the way. So as you know, so let's maybe take a step back here. The Namecoin assets were initially got rediscovered before even Punycodes in mid 2021, I think around May or so, by some people, and they discovered first those one name Twitter profiles that were tokenized on Namecoin. So that allowed people back in the day, in 2014, 2015, there was a protocol called One Name, which allowed people to tokenize their Twitter profiles on Namecoin. So you would be able to essentially port your Twitter avatar, your Twitter banner, your information that you have on your Twitter, the description, whatever, all of that, you could actually tokenize inside the Namecoin itself using that One Name protocol. And that allowed one of the earliest, I would say, and probably the earliest actually, PFP style tokenizations, right? In 2014, 2015. There is actually a community called TwitterX community who kind of is the community who rediscovered these assets. That start from 2014, and those are interesting assets themselves. But one of the assets that got rediscovered during that time was called Quantum. And now I guess probably a lot of people know where I'm going with this. This is one of the biggest debates probably in NFT space today, definitely within the historical NFT space, but also even at larger scale in the entire NFT space as well, I would say. A lot of people know Quantum as the first NFT. From a technical perspective, it's not accurate, of course. I'll explain why. But what is interesting with Quantum is that an artist actually created it. Kevin McCoy in 2014, he created this asset, like the artwork, some GIF artwork actually, that was created by his wife at the time, if I remember correctly, and he minted this on Namecoin, and he even added details like, oh, like whoever controls this blockchain entry owns this asset or owns this artwork, sorry, and that artwork. Basically, I think like that was probably the first instance of where someone minted something for the sole purpose of like an original art tokenization that can be, later sold. Because while we consider Punycodes to be the first art on blockchain, they're done very independently and very, I guess, like not with the intention to. It's more experiments, right? Like Punycodes are more like experiments. While Quantum was a bit more, I guess, intentional for the purpose of selling the art. And in that sense, that's why I think a lot of people considered Quantum to be the first NFT. But what became really controversial was because Namecoin is a DNS, originally built as a DNS, and assets that you register, if you don't renew them, they will expire over time. And what happened with the Quantum asset was that Kevin McCoy didn't renew it, and some time passed, and in 2021, people rediscovered these assets, and Quantum got re-registered, and then Kevin McCoy, in the end of I think 2021, he reminted Quantum on Ethereum, and then he sold it for a really high value. And it was done through Sotheby's, and they marketed it as the first NFT as well. So there were a lot of controversy around this. Like, first of all being like Quantum wasn't the first NFT. The first NFT was in 2011. The simple text, it's not an image, it's a simple text called d/Bitcoin on Namecoin. It's bitcoin.bit essentially. So that was the first thing. Second thing, Sotheby's referred to this as the first NFT, but one could argue. I mean, I guess there are like different ways to look at this, but it's a little bit controversial to say that it's the first NFT because it's reminted. Like if you look at the blockchain, the timestamp is 2021. On the other hand, like from an artist's hand perspective, if Kevin McCoy hasn't sold this asset as an artist, like just ignore all of our blockchain knowledge and just focus on the traditional like art knowledge. He hadn't sold it and he reminted it and he maintained the ownership sort of. Still, I still find it a bit problematic to call it like still the first minted NFT or anything. But anyway, basically this caused a lot of controversy. And the owner of Quantum in 2000, like the one who re-registered the version that was registered on Namecoin, he sued Kevin McCoy and Sotheby's for mismarketing or like false marketing or something. So this is a lawsuit that's still in progress. Like there's a lot of debate happening around it. Like there's arguments on both sides and so on. Like I think there are a lot of ways that you should be able to look at this. Like you like there is a way to look at it from technical perspective, and when you look at technical perspective, even then there are multiple views. For example, the views that we maintain is that Namecoin is designed around domain names. If you actually look at the consensus code, it literally use names to track the provenance, and that's why we consider names to be the main drivers of the it's the main like really driver of the value or the provenance. So if you don't renew an asset and it's still on the chain, like you can still see the asset on the chain, and if you re-register it, you're re-registering the same name because the name is the provenance identifier anyway, so there is no problem. It's still the old asset. But there is also there are also other the viewpoints as well. Other viewpoints say that there are like those. So I'm gonna get really technical here, but just bear with me for a second. Like there are UTXOs attached to these names, right? Like UTXO is like the unspent transaction amount, which is this technical detail on how you can hold the name assets or in a wallet, because names themselves are like almost like forms a database on Namecoin, but UTXOs are like these small coins, like 0.01 name coins that get attached to you, that you can hold in your wallet where the names are attached. And some would argue that no, like Namecoin's consensus design doesn't matter. In the end, Bitcoin's design is based on UTXOs, and we should, determine the provenance based on UTXOs. Like, personally, I don't accept that, like, because Namecoin is a blockchain on its own. We can't apply other chains' logic on Namecoin, in my opinion. But I expect like other people can view it differently, and they view it this way, and they consider the provenance to be broken, and that's new. The re-registrations are new NFTs. They're not like the old one, old assets. That's how they consider it. So this is the technical side, right? But from also there's the other side, right? Like the traditional art perspective, or the more like ethical or like artist's hand. There is this thing in the art world, right? Like for provenance, they consider like the artist's hand to be the determiner of the provenance. So you can consider it that way as well. And then what happens, like for example, when someone like Kevin McCoy doesn't actually mint, doesn't actually renew, and someone else renews, is it the same asset? Or there's like a lot of complicated conversations there, basically, that I don't want to get too much into. So, for example, in Punycodes, what we try to do is that we try to bring value back to the original creators. For example, Halusophile, we gifted like several NFTs back to him, as well as we included him in the the Puny Factory launch, where he sold a lot of his artworks. So we try to kind of bring the value back to the original creators, because we think that's like they should be, of course, compensated for their original creations, even if they didn't renew their assets. I understand like different perspectives on this topic as well. I just don't want to create like a drama or something here. I'm just saying that there are, I think, reasonable people can agree to disagree on these different topics.
Hey, Chain, this is epic. If I can jump in real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
The one explanation that you were giving on the UTXOs and the expiration and the retirement, I think the hand of the artist is an interesting take. But one of the counterpoints that and the way I've heard this discussion framed is that if it is in fact a new NFT when it has to be renewed, then it's not really an old NFT then. That's the crux of the argument, right? So if there's a Punycode that was minted in 2015, but it's been renewed several times since then, it's really a 2021 NFT that represents something that was minted back then. That's sort of the argument that they make. Therefore, it's not really historical. It's a new NFT pointing back at an old NFT. So I don't know if you just felt like elaborating on that, or if we just want to avoid the topic altogether.
No. This is what I wanted to talk. I mean, I'm happy to talk about the technical side a lot more actually than the other side, like the ethical and stuff. So because the other side is very subjective, like the ethical and the artist's hand side. It's more subjective. I'm more interested in actually talking about the technical side. So it's not really a new NFT. Like if you, or let's put it this way, wrapped mooncats, do you think they're new NFTs? I guess that's the first question I want to ask. Like the NFTs that you see in the on the OpenSea, like the wrapped mooncats, do you consider them to be new NFTs or old NFTs?
I would.
And I'm talking about 2017 mooncats that are wrapped and
old. Yeah,
are now traded in.
Those are still old because inside of the wrapper there is an ERC20 token from 2017 that can be unwrapped at any time.
Right, exactly. So this is the case with Punycodes or Namecoin assist in the if you accept Namecoin's provenance design, of course. So from the perspective of Namecoin's provenance design, there are you can look at the consensus code itself as well. I have an article actually about this. it uses names as the main unique identifier for the chain. And if you're using name as the unique identifier of the chain, when you re-register an asset that uses the same the same name, right? It actually then is the same old asset because it carries the history with itself, because you have throughout the whole history of that name, it changes its UTXOs over time, even during standard transfers. Like even when you transferred from your wallet A to your wallet B, a name asset, it will change its UTXO, but it will keep its name the same. And similarly, when it expires and when someone else re-registers it, the UTXO changes, but the name remains the same. So the idea behind this is that name never actually disappears, and it's actually on the chain. You can actually look at the chain. Name will never disappear. It's in the end append-only ledger, right? So the name itself will always remain on the chain, and it never actually disappears. What expires is the ownership, and that's the, I think, important distinction people usually miss there. The asset remains, but the ownership expires, which gets renewed by someone else when they re-register it.
So if there was a Namecoin asset that never expired from 2011, and it's never been expired, it's been owned by the same person ever since 2011, but they transferred it between their own wallets, that it would have different UTXOs.
Yep. But it's also like an interesting, we go into a bit more details here, but basically what happens is that, so if you look at counterparty, for example, in like a Bitcoin's, I guess layer 2 for where you trade the rare pepes and spells of Genesis and so on. This actually happens there as well. Like a lot of people don't know about it. This actually happens there as well. The difference is that in counterparty, and also in the case that you mentioned, for example, from 2011 to 2007, like 2023, let's say, never expired, always renewed by the same person. In these cases, the UTXOs will be different, but you can look at the transaction records where one UTXO gets spent and the second UTXO gets created. So people use this logic usually to track the provenance of an asset in a way that they call it like an unbroken UTXO chain, right? Like, if you catch my drift. And what happens with the re-registered Namecoin assets is that the original UTXO chain does not continue throughout the same transaction. A new UTXO chain gets created when you're reusing, or when you're using the new, re-registering the asset. But the thing is, this logic, again, like this UTXO logic, is built on Bitcoin. Like it's not a, that way of tracking provenance. Like even the fact that you have to look at the same transaction and track the chain of records. That's a definition that the developers at the time made just so that there is a way to track the ownership of the assets. That's just literally it. Like if you don't know anything about blockchains, and if you look at the blockchain itself, they will just look like different UTXOs to you. And similarly, Namecoin found the solution of tracking provenance through names. I mean, when you look at I keep saying this, but not just even the consensus code, but like the whole design of the chain, the whole even the ecosystem around it. For example, all the wallets, all the almost all now, because a few people built new browsers now, but almost all the block explorers, they're built around names, and that's because they want to track the record of provenance through the names. So it becomes really a philosophical debate. Like, do you have this puristic view of Ethereum, for example, like how you track through smart contracts, or do you want to do you accept that people built different ways to track provenance in the past? What I really don't accept is that someone would accept the provenance in like UTXO provenance of counterparty, but not accept the provenance of like name tracking through Namecoin. I really dislike that because I find it a little hypocritical, because either of these methods, like UTXO unbroken transactions or name provenance, both of those are done by developers of the time because of the limitations of those chains at the time. It's not an ideal implementation, but that's how the technology was at the time. As I said earlier, technology improves cumulatively on top of each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, great discussion. I see Outer's had their hand up for a while. They want to elaborate.
Yep. Yeah, go ahead, Outer.
Hey, thanks. I actually want to turn back before we dove into the tech a little bit about this notion of concept, because I do think it's a relevant topic. And I guess maybe because I think there's one way to look at this, which is obviously from the tech side, but I think the art world was looking at all of this from a different angle, which is why it's interesting and a bit subjective in what's favored. Has anybody here, I'm sure probably most of you know about Sarah Miyoha's project Bitcoin? Yes? Anyone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's an example of a concept before chain, right? Which is really interesting because, Sarah kind of conceptualized, that's what she does. She's a conceptual artist. And I don't know about, necessarily conceptualizing blockchain itself as a medium, but she definitely in her artwork, Bitcoin, considered blockchain to track ownership and public fractional ownership, which I think are key concepts. And then much later on, when Ethereum came out 6 months later, blah, 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 I think it's in 2021 that she finally put Bitcoin on chain. But she exhibited that work as a concept. So, even though it's not on the tech side as being a reality on chain, as an actual artwork, she conceptualized that and brought it into light fully, in galleries everywhere, right? So it's one of these things that I think is really interesting to consider. I find, and I don't know if people have access to this book, but there's a really great book called Proof of Art that came out from the ZKM Museum in 2017, and it's a really great primer for I think combining that idea of concept and how the art world was reacting and exhibiting artist explorations of blockchain as a medium, and I think it's an interesting tie into looking at it from the tech side, where the history of provenance is it's such a prominent consideration, because it's really interesting to me how these two worlds blend together.
Yeah, this is a really good point. In the art world, it's funny because I think even provenance as well. I watched a John Oliver episode once, they were talking about the provenance, in those museums and galleries, and how it's not always actually that perfect, and they actually kind of present it as something really important. Our provenance is the most important thing, and then you see how they exchange hands sometimes through some shady means, let's say. We would hope that blockchain would bring a little bit more transparency to this, but at the same time, it has its own quirks that cause these sorts of debates, I guess. Actually, I was if you Google provenance, it's funny, the definition starts with the tracking of ownership and what was it, custody. So when you see these first two, I'm okay, maybe ownership is really was provenance, not the existence, right? Because if someone didn't own it in between a certain period, does it not considered to be part of the provenance? And then it says location, so the history of not just the ownership and custody, but also the location. And then in Namecoin's case, there is definitely a location for them that stays in the blockchain, but it's definitely a very interesting conversation, especially the conceptual side. I think you mentioned Bitcoin, Arthur, but there is also the Nili. I think Nili coins. Maybe some people here know about it, know about her. So Nili Werner, she did this really interesting conceptual stuff from 2014 as well. By the way, really early on Bitcoin. And when you look at the Bitcoin talk forums of the time, people are attacking her, you're just scamming and stuff, and she's just trying to highlight the difference between the tokenization and how the ownership is different from the art itself and so on. It's very early for that detection. Even today, you have these debates from last year. What is it, Ryder Ripps, Bored Apes, his own collection. You have these debates even this year, last year. and she raised those questions in 2014, which is very interesting to me. So yeah, and she has a lot of ideas about this name coin topic as well. We actually even disagree, but I suggest her to check her thoughts on this as well. I think she has.
I think I've heard her speak in a few spaces about this thing. Yeah, it's such a good example of concept and bringing something into reality in a gallery versus bringing something into reality on chain, and where those two realities intersect.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, agree. Someone on the chat, in the museum chat, are there any more questions on this specific topic? Because someone raised a question, something else regarding the difference between domains and.
Okay, I guess you got to hit audio off or something, but I don't have a specific question necessarily. Chain left, but yeah, great presentation. A lot of new information. The whole discussion about quantum. Quantum is a project that I've heard about, but I haven't looked into, so that was really cool to hear. Yeah, if folks, my mic's on Twitter, so that's perfect. For folks on Twitter, what we're doing is we're streaming a presentation. Chain left is giving about Punycodes inside our new HNFT Museum that just launched last Friday with SIMULACRA. The link is posted above, so definitely check that out if you haven't. The space is open 24/7, so if you miss the space now, check it out. We're going to record this presentation and all that to the audio. So yeah, if you're on Twitter and want to invite yourself up, I know Chain left, there was a question in the chat inside SIMULACRA, which is a tool that we can use during these types of presentations, because we're going to be doing stuff like this every Monday on different projects. And then real quick, if there's anyone else on Twitter that wants to bring themselves up, XOAO and I are managing Twitter questions and stuff, so we can deal with that. But yeah, Chain left, what do you got?
Yeah, sorry. Just someone asked a question on the museum, and then I think there's also Dogfather who raised his hand. I just want to first answer the question on the chats in the museum. They asked the difference between bit domains and Punycodes. So bit domains is a sister community, I would call, for Punycodes. Most of us Punycode owners also own bit domains, and vice versa. I think we like each other a lot. And bit domains are basically the non-Punycode domains, I guess, or generally domains, right? From on Namecoin altogether, especially the ones that start with d/ essentially. Those are this is the main actual use case of Namecoin, right? Like the .bit. Consider it like ENS. It's the ENS of Namecoin, but it's the very first example of such thing in the entire blockchain history. Bit domains, they started, of course, with the first NFT, which is d/Bitcoin, which when you put it into browser, it will be like bitcoin.bit. They are, I think there is more than 11,000 in 2011, or 10,000 maybe in 2011. They did a lot of historical, I guess, a organization around the historical NFT community as well, around the bit domains. They start from the earliest day, 2000, April 10, I think, maybe, if I'm not mistaken, or April 25 or something. And then all the way up until the December 31st, 2011, they have I think about more than 10,000 assets there. Punycodes are a bit different. Punycodes are between 2011 to 2017, but we have this specific encoded language, essentially, and that's what, or encoding language, that's what we consider to be this, I guess, additional or over and above the protocol creativity, sort of creativity that is done on the chain. And so there are a lot of overlaps in the communities, with Bitcoins and Punycodes. You might you will find probably a lot of common names. That's the same with also Namecoin IDs, by the way. There is also another now collection called Namecoin IDs starting from 2012. There is also Twitter X, starts from 2014, and they are these are all all Namecoin collections or communities are kind of sister communities, I would call. We collaborate sometimes, on stuff. We actually together fund stuff as well. For example, we funded Hallucifile to go to HNFT Fest in last October. We also are now starting to fund some developments on Namecoin, dev funds, actual dev work fund. So yeah, we're like collaborating a lot together. Dogfather?
Yeah, just something I wanted to add. So I was pinning a thread, a tweet about the written companion to everything historical. So it's the NFThistory.org website where we have a wiki for the Punycodes and many other collections like the crypto schools and others. So for those of you who like to also read a bit and have everything in a very concise matter and done by different writers. So check out the NFThistory.org website where you also find everything Chainleft was presenting today. But if you prefer reading, just head over there.
Yeah, that's a good shout. Yeah, really good information in that wiki. I guess, yeah, NFT history wiki. Yeah. Anything else? I think we're a little over time, but it's fine. I think I have
Chainleft. Yeah, thanks so much. Just gonna pause the audio there. If everyone can hear me on the museum as well. Yeah, a really fascinating conversation. I love the question and love the your partnerships with other projects in Namecoin, and it's great to see the community grow. And I think there was a question around like ENS and lineage domains, for example. How do you see this kind of differentiate as well? Do you see Punycodes more as a art rather than just domains? And what do you kind of see the use case of being compared to the other domains?
So yeah, I mean, technically you can make domains out of Punycodes as well. Like you can actually make a website like emoji.bit or something. But the thing is, it's going to be hard like to use. The whole purpose of having those name systems is to have easy accessibility, right? The entire point behind that, like this is what bit domains is essentially. Like if you look at certain websites with .bit, they will have actual use case like that they will actually have a utility to build a website around them. And technically you can do that with Punycodes, but it's going to be very hard to use because how am I supposed to go to an ASCII art.bit like some I don't know, smiling face with doing shrug or table flip. It's very difficult, and this is actually kind of one of the points why we like think, I guess, that these are actually arts assets, because there is like it doesn't fit the utility of the chain. They are doing something outside the main purpose of the medium that they are given, right? The main medium that they are playing with is essentially a DNS, sort of system, and but you can't really use it as a DNS. The Punycodes that you have, like you can use them, but it's not going to work very well because it's not convenient to type an ASCII art to your browser. And this is actually why we are. I mean, it's probably like maybe you can consider it like a speculation even, but this is why we assume that these are probably done with art intention, or at least experiment or essentially fucking around intention, really. That's kind of the beauty of it for me, at least. And I don't really imagine myself using Punycodes as an extension or a sort of a utility for a .bit. But I have some .bit domains that I plan to use for that purpose. Yes, in the future, hopefully, when the utility is a little bit like more easier to use. Even today you can do it, but it's going to be like a bit better, I think, with the new developments. And yeah, I would plan to do that for .bits, but not for Punycodes. I think it's a little counterintuitive.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you so much. Lizzo asked a question about where can folks find these assets and ask further questions. And I guess like one quick other question would be, what's your favorite asset you use that you own from Punycodes? Is it emoji? What is it?
Good question. So the first answer the first question is punycodes.xyz. You'll probably have links to everything there. Just simple punycodes.xyz. You can also go to the Linktree, like Linktree/Punycodes, but I think punycodes.xyz probably the website is a better place to find all the information. You can go to Discord from that place as well. Like there's a Discord link from there also. Even discord.gg/punycodes will take you to Discord directly as well. We have enough boosts so that we can have our custom links. So you can find all the information, I think, in those links. My favorite that I own, it'll have to be probably a symbol I have from 2012. The reason is, so I have actually an ASCII art as well from 2015. It's pre Ethereum, so it's like it's still very early, and I love it. Like the ASCII art, that one is, to be honest, it's a gift actually to me by Poodle. When in the early days, like I did a lot of work in the Punycodes community. I wasn't one of the original discoverers, but because I did some work, like he just said, like you're a really good guy, so he just gave me that as a gift, which is like crazy considering how valuable these are. But the one that I probably like the most is my early 2012, I think January, a symbol with like 3 stars. It's like when you search for it, it's like the symbol for constellations or something like that. And the reason I like probably is also because like it doesn't exist in any of the keyboards. It's like no keyboards, no languages keyboards. Like it's not in Latin, Russian, Arabic, whatever, Chinese. It doesn't exist there. It doesn't exist in mobile keyboards. It's just like a symbol that just somehow is punycoded onto the chain. And I find it like very fascinating when someone does it for not a utility, but just to do something weird, basically. And that's why I like it. It's so early 2012. That's probably why I like that one the most. But I don't own many, by the way. I still own 10 Punycodes only. I like the same number as I had the first day. I did sell some, but I also bought some. So it's just I like them. I keep them, and I enjoy my what I own today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.